Fujifilm X100VI full frame alternative. Let me share with you this full frame alternative. I'm using it for several years and the results are really great. And I want to share with you how this full frame lens is comparing against the X100V X100VI lens. So let's talk about this now. Hi there and welcome to my channel. My name is Tudor Matescu and I like to talk about photography tips, tricks and photography gear. And one of the tips that I want to share with you is that lenses are very important. Back in the days, the tip was invest in lenses, not in the camera body, invest in lenses. Buy yourself a good lens and after this buy yourself a good camera body. And this advice is still available today. I do agree it's not entirely available as on a film camera, because on a film camera you'll use the same film stock like Kodak Tri-X. It doesn't matter what body you'll use. The only piece of gear that will make a difference in the image quality, it was the lens. Now we have sensors, APS-C sensors, full frame sensors and so on. So it really matters also the sensor. But nowadays, even if X100VI has a great sensor, a great 40 megapixel sensor that we can find on X-T5, it's still an APS-C sensor in the end. So even if we are using great and latest sensors, we still need a good lens. This is the 35mm f1.4 lens. It's a great lens, but it's not resolving the 40 megapixel sensor. But resolving a 40 megapixel sensor, it's not enough. The lens needs to have some characteristics to it. It needs to have some good sharpness, micro contrast, 3D pop, and it needs not to be a flat lens. I think this is one of the problems that many beginners don't realize. They just look at pixel level and they think that at pixel level the image is looking fine. It's not enough. You need micro contrast, you need 3D pop, you need 3D contrast, let's call it like this. You need a lens that it's not flat. Search for this term, flat lenses. Macro lenses are in general flat because they need to be flat. So anyway, now we have the X100V X100VI lens. I'm not saying that X100VI, that it has the same lens as X100V, it's a flat lens, but also it's not an extraordinary lens. It's a sharp lens, it's a lens that is delivering in certain conditions when we have good light. A great lens, it will deliver in any kind of light. Have that in mind. A great lens is delivering in any kind of light. You'll be able to discover a good lens versus a flat lens or not such a good lens when you look at images made in different lighting conditions and especially in low lighting conditions. This lens is delivering. Yes, it's not resolving the 40 megapixel sensor, but it's delivering. So have that in mind when I'm talking about the X100V lens. So the glass in the lens, it's very important, the aperture blaze and all what it's built into that lens. So this is my tip regarding how to choose a good lens. Now having this in mind, let's look at the full frame alternative. Now this is a Zeiss lens. This is a Zeiss lens, a sonar build design lens, sonar with AF, and it's a great lens. It's a stellar lens. I'm really loving this lens for what it is. It's small and compact. It's a 35mm f2.8 on a full frame. We'll talk about that f2.8 aperture immediately. It's a pancake lens. It's a small lens. It's a metal build lens. And the Zeiss design, a true Zeiss sonar design. They don't make the lenses like this nowadays. I also have the 35mm f1.8 Sony lens. It's a sharp lens, but it's not rendering as beautiful as this lens. So this is why I've decided to choose this lens for the X100VI full frame replacement. The body that I'm using is Sony a7C, but you can also go for Sony a7 II or Sony a7CR. So better image quality, better AF, lots of resolution and so on. But let's talk just about the lens. So this is Sony a7C with 35mm f2.8 in hand with the lens that has the lens hood mounted. If I will take up the lens hood, the lens will be very, very small. So a very small, compact lens, very light, with great AF and IAF. I've used tete-a-tete this lens and body with X100V. This lens on Sony A7C is delivering better image quality. So great IAF, great details, great rendering of the portraits, great colors, nice looking bokeh, and better subject to background separation. It has the 3D pop. It has a problem. Unfortunately, it has a small little problem that I'm not liking. Maybe there are also other problems like purple fringing or stuff like this, but this is not important for me. What I'm looking for at a lens and at a great camera, it's the final image, not all the details. That doesn't matter for the purpose that I'm using the camera and lens. Sony A7C is becoming very, very portable with this lens. I know we have the other new lenses from Sony, but this is 35 meters, equivalent to X100VI, and still it's a good lens. f2.8 aperture. Well, this lens has an f2.8 aperture. This means in practice, better subject to background separation because we are using this lens on a full frame body. And I will tell you about the problem that I have with this lens, what it's bothering me regarding this lens, and it's the only thing that it bothers me. It is the minimum to focus distance. The minimum to focus distance, it's not great. The minimum to focus distance is 35 centimeters. Yes, for me now it seems strange that I'm whining about this feature now that I'm shooting a Leica, but when I'm shooting a Fujifilm X100V or a camera like this, I tend to get closer because I'm using the LCD screen. So I can't get as close as I'm getting with X100V. This will be a bummer in some situations like food photography and product photography, but other than that, I am loving this lens. The portraits are great, the AF it's extraordinary, and the rendering it's really, really special. The rendering is really special, and more than that, what it struck me is that the f2.8 aperture is giving me better subject to background separation, better 3D pop than any X100V, X100VI lens. So if you are into portraits, this will do a better job. But where it lacks, well, I feel it lacks regarding the body and the Sony color science and the Sony ergonomics. This body and lens are great depending on what you are doing. It really depends on what kind of photography you are doing. But if you want very close-up, candid street photography, this is not the package for you, because for this you must use the silent shutter, and on a full frame camera you can't use the silent shutter because you have bending. So this is a problem for fast, candid, close-up street scenes, and this is where X100V and X100VI are shining. Why I'm not liking to use Sony A7C with 35 meters f2.8 for close-up candid photography? Well, because the mechanical shutter is doing a very loud sound. It's okay when you are at an event, a public manifestation or a riot or something like this where the sound doesn't matter. But if you are on a lonely street or on a quiet street, the mechanical shutter will make a noise, and more than that, will make an artificial noise. This is my next bonus tip. I was really annoyed about the mechanical shutter sound of Sony A7C, and also it's reported on Sony A7C Mark II. On Reddit, if you are searching on Google, artificial mechanical shutter, you'll find a thread where they are talking about this problem. So it seems Sony implemented an artificial sound next to the normal mechanical sound. I don't know why Dave did this, and Dave did this, I'll show you immediately, because I have a scotch tape here on the speakers of the camera to make that sound not to sound so loud. So let's hear the sound of Sony A7C, the mechanical shutter sound. You feel that squeak. And again, it's not as loud because I have the scotch tape here. You see here that I have two scotch tapes. This is made to cover the speakers. Again, make this test if you have Sony A7C and Sony A7C Mark II and tell me if you are able to hear the difference. The theory is like this: because when the camera it will close from time to time, Sony A7C, A7C Mark II and all Sony cameras are making a sensor cleanup from time to time, and some users discovered that when Sony A7C is making the cleanup, the mechanical shutter is not so loud, but when you are taking pictures it's louder. How is this? And also it's artificial, it's not okay. Search on Google, you will find out about this problem. So I'm really shocked why Sony did this, why they implemented an artificial sound that is heard with the mechanical shutter when you are taking pictures. I don't know, they find it more beautiful, I really don't know. But that sound, it's really bothering me for candid street portraits on a quiet street, because again it will be heard. So I'm not liking too much to use Sony A7C for this. So this is the only problem that I'm finding using a full frame camera against a Fujifilm camera. The next so-called problem is of course that you don't have Fujifilm film simulations, but you can always use presets and edit the raw files. This is discussable. Yes, I do prefer the Fujifilm film simulations, especially for family photography, but in the end it depends from user to user. So what matters more for you? Great straight out of the camera JPEGs without the full frame look, a good camera for portraits from time to time without the full frame details, or a reliable full frame camera that will offer you great AF, great IAF and great files, and will offer you the chance to upgrade to better bodies and better lenses, because we must also take in consideration the price of X100VI. So with the price of X100VI, we will be able to make a better full frame alternative when we will use Sony. But other than that, there are also other full frame alternatives even cheaper than Sony and even cheaper than X100VI. I will give you now those alternatives. Those alternatives are coming from the Canon system. You can always get an RP. I've used that RP for my friend. It's a great camera, a true great camera with a silent mechanical shutter, with a very thin body, and you also have on Canon RP a very small RF lens with macro capabilities, the 35mm f1.8 Canon lens. So Canon RP with the 35mm f1.8 lens, also it's a great choice, it's a totally great choice. The only downside is, for some users, again, the flip screen. I personally don't like the flip screen, so I'm pro tilt screen on X100VI, but Sony A7C and Canon RP have flip screens. Some users are liking those flip screens, and I saw a video where a user really criticized X100VI because not having a flip screen, because he likes to take vertical shots with the flip screen. So he was very accustomed with the flip screen. I'm not accustomed with a flip screen. But if you are accustomed with a flip screen, then a full frame Canon RP or Sony A7C, it could be a good choice. Another not so budget friendly choice is of course Nikon ZF. Nikon ZF with 40mm f2, it could be a choice. But why I'm saying it could be a choice? Because you have the 40mm field of view, the so-called pancake lens from Nikon. If you want the 35mm lens, you don't have an option there. You have wider apertures there, like 26mm, 28mm, but you don't have a pancake 35mm f2, f2.8 lens. My go-to choice is this Sony A7C. You get great files, but if you want a better budget alternative with a silent mechanical shutter with great JPEGs and great colors. So the only thing that I'm not loving too much regarding Sony cameras are the JPEGs. I'm liking more from what I've looked, the Canon JPEGs. If you want a JPEG that you can use straight from the camera for family photography and for colored photography where you don't want to stay to edit, then Canon RP, it's a really good choice. Other than that, of course, X100VI has its own appealing because it has all those goodies packed into a small compact camera. Now, if you want to find out more about Sony a7C versus Fujifilm X100V. I've made several videos where I'm treating these problems. Please check the next video and see how X100V it is comparing to Sony a7C tete-a-tete. Also, please like, subscribe and leave me your comments. Thank you and I will talk to you soon. Bye bye.